everyone, and welcome to Mochi Doki Mochi, episode 15. So, back back in February, I believe, I made like a community post saying that I was having some issues with like getting out episode 15, and then I kind of like just disappeared. I went to Japan, I studied there as an exchange student, and surprisingly, I didn't read much manga or watch a lot of anime. I did go to a couple of exhibitions, went to a pop-up cafe as well, which I can tell you was not a great experience. In any case, I did that, and then what else did I do? Yeah, I went to some bookstores, but yeah, for the most part, I just kind of like focused on the task at hand, which was learning Japanese. And so now I'm back, I'm getting back into the swing of things with, manga, anime, just life in general. And so I thought, you know what? I'm gonna make a video. So, a podcast episode. So today, I wanted to talk about the Kono Manga ga Sugoi ranking list women's edition 2024. So for those who don't know what Kono Manga ga Sugoi is, it is a MOOC, which is a hybrid between a magazine and a book. Now, the Kono Manga ga Sugoi editorial team sends out surveys to like all sorts of people in the entertainment industry, booksellers, librarians, even high school kids, people who go to trade school for manga. And then using this point system, they create 2 manga ranking lists, which each consist of like 50 manga, and they're based on gender. Now, there are disadvantages and advantages to like ranking manga in this way. One glaring disadvantage is that manga that doesn't specifically cater to one gender demographic might get like overlooked, fall through the cracks. But then an advantage is that actually there's more recognition for shoujo and josei manga, because looking at it, there's a smaller amount of people who read josei and shoujo manga compared to shonen and seinen. And so in this way, despite having a smaller readership, these shoujo and josei manga still can get some recognition. That's not to say that like just because something is like a shoujo manga or a shonen manga that they can't be in like different ranking list, because actually what I've seen happen sometimes, especially in the women's ranking, is that like a seinen manga will pop up. Yes, so having said that, I want to talk about the top 10, and I thought it would be fun to just start from the bottom and go upwards. That was my shoulder. Okay, let's start. First off, we have Koboreru Yoru by Aruga Rie. So this also has like an English title. I'm not sure that it has, I'm pretty sure it doesn't have an English translation, but sometimes manga will also have like an English like subtitle. This one is Shelter of Love, and this manga is currently getting published in Kiss, which is a josei manga magazine. Yeah. And some of you might actually already know Aruga. She is the mangaka behind Perfect World. That was a josei romance manga about a woman in her mid-20s, and then she kind of like reconnects with her, I believe, like high school crush, and she finds out that he is now wheelchair bound. And so this is just a romance about 2 people, one being able-bodied and the other one not. And knowing that history of Aruga, it's actually not really a surprise that she's come out with this manga. This manga focuses on 2 kids who live in an orphanage. So Yoru, the girl, when she was younger, she was abandoned by her father. And so, left in the care of her mother, she was severely neglected and abused. Eventually, I guess like the Japanese version of CPS, is that like Child Protective Services? They came in, took her away from her mother, who had mental health issues, I believe. They take her to this home for children, which houses, I believe, kids from like 2 up until like kids in their 3rd year of high school. Yoru comes in there around like age 9, and that's where she meets Tenjaku, and he is another boy in this home, and he kind of like takes Yoru under his wing. And so, yeah, the manga centers around these 2 high school kids. Well, we fast forward to high school. They're, I believe, in their 2nd year. And so we kind of like get to see like their last year at the children's home. And yeah, it's a romance manga. So I think I read about just the first 2 chapters from all these manga that are in the top 10. I've like either read like a couple of stories if it's like a one shot, or just a couple of chapters. Some I've read more, so I'll just also try to kind of interject a bit of my opinion, even though I've like not read like a lot, but just kind of like first impressions I guess. So yeah, I think what's really interesting about this manga is that it centers around people who like live on the fringes of Japanese society. I think that whole like fiction, manga, books, basically Japanese work that focuses on these type of people has always attracted me a lot. Like in reading, for instance, Murata Sayaka, she writes a lot about like these type of people, like either through gender or sexuality, or and in any case, I just think that is very interesting. So yeah, I have only read like 2 chapters. I think I already said that, but it seems promising. I have read, I think, at least 1 or 2 volumes of Perfect World, and it's always been a manga that I've been wanting to return to, because at least what I read, I really, really enjoyed. So it's nice to see that she's still out there making good work. Now, moving on to spot number 9, we have Hotaru no Yomeiri, and this one was created by Tachibana Oreko, and it comes from the Josei Josei magazine, Ura Sunday Joshibu, so like Ura Sunday Women's Club. And this is, I guess, what should I call it? Like a romance, adventure, comedy manga. Oh wait, historical manga as well. So I believe it's set in the Meiji era, like end 19th century, early 20th century. And it focuses on this noblewoman called, what's she called again? She's called Kirigaya Satoko, and she is in a bit of a pickle, essentially. So she is incredibly beautiful, and she gets so many marriage proposals. The thing is that ever since she was young, she had health issues, and she has a very, very weak heart, and she's been told all her life that she will die young and that she just doesn't have a lot of time to live. And so despite getting so many marriage proposals, she kind of like always just rejects them, because she feels bad for like marrying someone and then knowing that she's going to like make them into a widower, like that she's going to die, like she could die any time. So yeah, that's kind of like the crux of this story. And so one day when she is out shopping for her father's birthday present, she gets kidnapped. Da da da. And so this group of bandits have apparently been hired by someone who, I might add, kind of like the person who like I think like hired those people. I think it's pretty straightforward who that person is. In any case, or two people are. In any case, yeah, they kidnap her and they have been told to kill her. And they have actually hired someone themselves who they told basically to guard her, and then at a certain time he has to kill her. He apparently is like a legend and like really like a good like sword man. And so what happens is that there's like this turn of events and he ends up just slaughtering, absolutely like cutting up all these bandits, and then he and Satoko end up getting married. So yeah, that's kind of like the basis of this story. I've only, I think, read the first 3 chapters. I will say though that the first 2 chapters are freely available on a website. The English translation, that is. This one actually has like an official English translation, so I'll leave a link to that in the description box. This manga is right up my alley because it's like humor and there's like adventure and gore. Like if you've watched this podcast, I'm sure you've heard me speak about Brutal and how much I love that manga. And yeah, from what I've seen, there's like a good amount of like, you know, graphic, well, not really like, I wouldn't say like really gory stuff. Well, people get their limbs cut off. I should stop. Basically, what I just want to say is that this seems like such a fun manga and I'm definitely going to continue with it. Now, moving on to spot number 8, we have our first shoujo manga, and this one is called Ookami no Musume, so like the daughter of the wolf. So this one is being published in Flower magazine, and I read the first volume of this one, so I can tell you a bit more about like what's going on. Volume 1 really does a great job of like setting up the story. But yes, it is, I don't know, I think personally this is like a fantasy / romance manga at this point. It centers around Tsukina, who is a girl in her last year of high school. She's doing well, everything is going great. And she starts her part-time job at, I think, like the food court or like somewhere in the mall. She works at like a fast food restaurant, and it's in this mall where she meets this mysterious guy, and before even seeing her, he kind of like notices her, like her smell, and he walks up to her and he's like, "You smell different." And so he starts talking about like things Tsukina has no idea about, and then ta-da, it's revealed it's revealed that Tsukina comes from a line of wolves. Apparently she is like a wolf girly, and so she can actually transform into a wolf if she wants to. And this guy is also a wolf. The thing is that Tsukina didn't know, because when she was little she was adopted by some people, I guess like some regular people, and so she never really learned about this until this guy comes around and kind of like takes her under his wing, and he shows her his family who are also wolves, shows her his pack. And so basically she turns for the first time in front of the family of wolves, of black wolves, and everyone's like, what? Turns out that she is a grey wolf, and this is very special because apparently there were only black and white wolves, and they kind of like stayed in their own lane, so they didn't really like mingle all that much. And so she's like this wolf that came from, I guess, a black wolf and a white wolf, and yeah, so she's like special. And then so yeah, you have like the first like black wolf, and there's, you know, between her and the guy, there seems to be like something brewing. But then at some festival she meets another guy, and that's a white wolf. And then it's like, whoa, like love triangle, whoa, what's going on? So yeah, that's kind of like where chapter 1 ends. And so it sets up this like story about Suki now, like all these questions about where does she come from, how did it happen that she's like a grey wolf, and like these two like potential love interests. So I don't know, it just kind of like reminded me of like a classic solid romance fantasy shoujo. So I liked it in any case. So let's move on to number 7. And actually number 7 and 6 come from the same magazine, Ruel. I'm not too sure what type of magazine it is. It seems to be like a web one, like a web josei one, but I'm not too sure. In any case, number 7 is Ie ga Suki na Hito by Ida Chiaki, and this is basically a full color one shot, and it features 5 people who love their home. Basically the title is People Who Love Their Home, and as you can imagine, it's just kind of like just tiny stories about people being all cozy and nice in their home. Actually, I found this book when I was in Japan, when I was at Junko Books in Ikebukuro, and I wanted to kind of like look through it, but it was like wrapped in plastic. But I really like the style of the manga. It has a very, how would I say it, like it almost feels nostalgic. I actually haven't really read all that much of this one, mainly because the manga, you know, usually there's just like the text is just, I don't know, like computer text, but this manga is handwritten, and I struggle so much reading handwritten Japanese. But I mean, like, I don't even feel necessarily like what is being written is like the like show steal of this manga. Really, they're just the illustrations, the coziness, the vibe of it is really what stands out to me and gives me very chill and, I don't know, vibing feelings. Then moving on to number 6, we have Kirio Fan Club, and this one was created by Chikyu no Osakana Ponchan. Like I said before, just as Ie ga Suki na Hito, this manga comes from Ruel. So this is actually a comedy manga, and it centers around these 2 girls in high school called Nami and Oimi, and they are friends, but they are also like rivals because they like the same guy. And so the manga is just kind of like them going through school and just like I don't know, having a crush on Kirio. So yeah, I read like the trial on Bookwalker, which I think was like a chapter or something this morning, and it was really interesting, I thought. So basically it has a type of humor that I think is really fun. Just a tiny example. So Nami and Oimi are, I don't know, I think like cleaning up or something, and they get to the classroom and they find that Kirio has forgotten his like school coat in the classroom, and they like start fighting about who like should bring it to him. And so they decide to do jankenpon, like rock paper scissors. So this one so like one of the girls, so the first one does like rock, paper, scissors, and she does scissors. And then the other girl does rock, paper, scissors. And so she takes away like the paper and she's like, oh yeah, I win. So I don't know, that just really made me laugh. So it just, I guess, well, I can't say too much about like one chapter, of course, but I think this really seems to be like a fun manga. Now we're moving into the latter half of this top 10, and we are starting off with number 5, which is Ikoku Nikki by Yamashita Tomoko. Yeah. So this is actually a manga that ended back in June. It has about 11 volumes. It's been around, and I've only actually ever heard really good things about it. And remember when I said that I went to a pop-up cafe? I went to the pop-up cafe of this manga in Ikebukuro, and basically what they served was, well, this will become clear later on, but the first breakfast that these two characters have together. So some toast, some mustard and ketchup with some cabbage and what is it, like 2 like sausages. And I have to say that was the blandest meal I had when I was in Japan, and kind of like talking to friends when I was there. It turns out that like pop-up cafe food usually isn't like the best. So yeah, and also it's like expensive too, because most of the food, like compared to like how much like a full meal costs in the Netherlands, most of the food in Japan is really cheap and convenient, and that food was not cheap and it was also not good. In any case, let's get into this manga. So the story follows a 15-year-old girl named Asa, and her parents tragically passed away in a car accident. And so at the funeral, people are talking about how like they don't want to really like take Asa in. Like everyone kind of like comes up with like an excuse or whatever. In any case, what happens is that Makio, her mother's sister, her mother's younger sister, so basically Asa's aunt, says, you know, come live with me. So basically that's what happens. Makio herself is a novelist and kind of like different to like the adults that Asa has been around in her life up until then. And yeah, basically what happened was when Makio was like, come and like live with me, it was done on an impulse. Makio at the time didn't have a relationship with her sister. Actually, she says that she hated her. And so Asa actually didn't really know much about Makio. They didn't really know much about each other, because I think they've only met like maybe a handful of times, or like once before, like years and years back. Basically, Makio kind of like on an impulse took Asa in, and then she realized like, oh wait, I'm kind of shy and I don't do really well with like people, living things around me. But yeah, they just kind of like go through life with each other. And yeah, I have known about this manga for the longest time, and I've really been meaning to read it. And yeah, I've only read a couple of chapters, not really enough to like really form an opinion, because it's still like very much so in the first couple of days of the two of them living together. But I'm really interested in seeing like how they like, you know, how both of them like influence each other, and how like just basically what's going to happen. Also, Yamashita is friends with Hitomi Tanako, who is the mangaka of Jean Bride, and they've actually done a couple of interviews together, kind of like talking about the process of their manga and like the ideas behind those. And I've read a bit of that, and I've read, of course, Jean Bride, which I still have to talk about on this channel. But yeah, definitely one I'm going to be reading. Then moving on, number 4, we have another Kiss magazine manga, and this one is called Kujaku no Dansu Dare ga Mita. It was created by Asami Hito, and it also has an English title, which is Who Saw the Peacock Dance in the Jungle. So I stumbled on this manga, I think somewhere last year, when I was reading that one like wild manga by Batan that was also published in Kiss, which is a really good one and apparently has finished now, so I'm going to buy the last 2 volumes and read them. In any case, this manga piqued my interest because it's kind of like outside the mainstream of josei manga. No, I wouldn't say like outside mainstream, but basically within josei manga, the most popular like categories are romance and drama, like slice of life, and you can have like also like some historical fiction, historical mangas like mixed in with like romance, for instance. You don't really have a lot of like horror, yeah, fantasy from time to time, not many like murder mysteries, things like that. And so I really like that type of stuff, and I like when it's like targeted towards women. So that's kind of like how I stumbled upon this manga. So it is a murder mystery. We follow a 21-year-old woman called Yamashita Komigi, and you know, one day it's like I think around Christmas, she is hanging out with her father at a ramen store, and they're just kind of like talking, eating, bantering. And so she has decided that she wants to go to the movies by herself. And so her father decides to drop her off, and he just basically tells her, you know, call me when you're done, I'll come and pick you up. She goes to the movies, is done, texts her dad, no response. Tries to call, I believe, also no response. And when it starts to snow, she just decides to walk back home. And that's where she finds her entire home on fire. It turns out her father, who was a retired police officer, was murdered, and the house was set on fire while his body was there. And the culprit gets caught. But then, also rather quickly, Komigi receives a letter which apparently her father left for her and wrote the night that they were having the ramen together. He tells her a lot of things, but one thing stands out. And that is basically, there's a list of names in the letter, and it says, if any of these people have been arrested for my murder, let it be known they did not kill me. And so this sets into motion like a lot of stuff, because he also tells her she also gets like 3 million yen in an envelope, and in the letter it says that she has to go to a specific lawyer to give him that money so that he can work on the defense case of the person who is in jail. Did I actually say that the person who was like the guy who was I forgot. Oh wait, I completely forgot to say that the guy who was caught was also on that list. So yeah, basically her father has requested her to go to this lawyer, give him the money, and then work on the defense of this man. And so that's kind of like how things slowly start to unravel. Komiki starts to learn more about her father, like what exactly he did in the police force. And I just thought this was an excellent manga. I'm at volume 2. at this moment. I believe like volume 4 just recently came out, and there's so much heart to this manga. Komigi is very easily, like, you can really easily attach yourself to her. She's a very straightforward, very likable character, and because of all these, like, during the story there's also a lot of like flashbacks between when she's like younger and when just like how her relation, we get to get some insight on her relationship with her father growing up, and that just gives so much like color to a character. There's also a lot of humor to the story. The lawyer who eventually gets put on the case is a huge source of humor as well, and it's just really fun trying to like figure out what's happening essentially. So this is one that I would highly recommend, and I would hope that this one actually gets an English translation soon, so you know, fingers crossed. Moving to the top 3, we actually have a manga from one of my favorite magazines. Ta-da! Haruta. So I actually made a video about the magazine, I think like almost a year ago, I think at this point. Basically, Haruta is a magazine that actually, it's seinen, but it is one of those seinen magazines that also attracts a lot of women just due to the work that is created there. They are very, very, like, I wouldn't say, they're not kind of like your, I guess like traditional seinen magazine, and also a lot of the mangaka who are making work for the magazine are women, and so I think that also attracts like either like directly or like subliminally women to the readership of Haruta. Was that a correct sentence? I don't know. Without further ado, on spot number 4, we have Iyahaya Atami-kun, and this manga was created by Tanuma Asa. This is their debut manga serialization, and actually they also have a one-shot with just short stories that they had published before in Haruta, and a couple of new ones, I believe, as well. And that actually coincided with the publication date of the first volume of Atami-kun. There are now 2 volumes out. So yeah, before I left for Japan, this was one of the manga that I was actually actively reading, because I was actively reading Haruta, and I really liked it. So so to give you like a quick synopsis, the story focuses on this boy called Atami. He is in high school, and he's like the pretty boy at school. All the girls like have crushes on him, and he's constantly getting confessed to. The only thing is that he's not really interested in girls. He likes boys, and the funny thing about it is that it's almost like every single grade he like falls in love with a new guy. Like, for instance, I think it's so long ago, but I remember like at the start of like the first volume, he ends up hanging out with this one guy. Like, they sit and kind of like talk during their breaks, and he like kind of like falls head over heels for him, and then the guy's like, well, no, I'm like not interested, but they're still friends. And so like, I don't know, like a week after, he's like, oh yeah, I've fallen in love with someone. And it's like, whoa, pump the brakes, like chill a bit. So yeah, I just thought it seemed like a really fun manga, and definitely one I'm gonna like pick up again now that I'm reading again. So it's nice to see that it's getting some recognition. So on to number 2, and here we have Ki ni natteru hito ga otokojanakatta. So this also has an English title, which is, what is it called? The guy she was interested in wasn't a guy at all. So this one was created by Arai Sumiko, and I have seen like so many like panels of this manga on my Twitter feed. It's very recognizable because the entire manga is like neon green in the background, which I think is really cool. First off, I have to say the art style is super dope, really cool, and you know, it really stands out because I hadn't really looked into the manga all that much before the rankings here, but I already like knew about it just because of like how distinct the style is. In any case, this is a manga. I thought it used to be self-published, like on Twitter, but I'm not too sure. But now it is on Pixiv, and the magazine that's like managing it is Kitora. So the manga follows two girls in high school, Asa and Mitsuki. So Asa is like your typical girly girl in school, and Mitsuki just tries to like hide or like blend into the background as much as possible. Now, Mitsuki, in like her spare time, she helps out at the CD store of her uncle. She's like really into like Nirvana, David Grohl, Foo Fighters. Yeah, Foo Fighters, that's it. Yeah, and yeah, so she has like a pretty like hardcore like look. Like she has piercings, black nail polish, just really like cool. And she wears a mask as well at work. And so Asa comes to that CD store, and she just like basically she gets a crush on Mitsuki. But the thing is that she doesn't realize that Mitsuki is Mitsuki. She thinks Mitsuki is actually just a really cool guy working at the CD shop, and not the girl she never talks to, who is like next to her, sitting next to her in her classroom. And so the first couple of chapters are really about them kind of like bonding, but also this weird thing where Mitsuki is finding a hard time trying to tell Asa who she is, and like, I don't know, it was cool. I think it was really cool, like a very like fun premise. It reminds me of that other popular manga about this guy who takes smoke breaks with the convenience store woman who's always very smiley, but like in like outside of like work she's kind of like cool and like not the bubbly type that she is at the convenience store, and he like doesn't recognize her. So also just like a really good manga, but like it doesn't surprise me that these are all good manga. So that's that. And now we move on to the number one spot. And I was actually surprised that this went to a manga from Tochi magazine. It's an online manga magazine. I don't really think necessarily like seinen or josei, but yeah, usually you don't hear all that much about like what they're doing. But yeah, let's get to it. The number one spot goes to Umibe Stobu by Oshiro Kogani. Like a rough translation of the title is like the space heater at the coast. So this is actually a one shot. It's an anthology. Just I think like maybe 7 stories if I am correct. Yeah, I think it's 7 stories, and you can actually read the first story for free on the Torch or Tochi website. It is in Japanese though, but yeah. Who knows, maybe there'll be an English translation in the future. In any case, yeah, I read the first story, and wait, no, I didn't read the first story. I read like the first 3 stories. And I have to say that it's like, it makes so much sense that this is number one, because this type of like work is very popular in Japan, or at the very least very popular within fiction, like Kawakami Hiromi, Murata Sayaka, what was the Ogawa Yoko, like all these women like write a lot of surrealistic fiction with a lot of like just things that just kind of like don't make sense, like items that can speak, worlds where gravity like stops for 20 seconds, and if you don't hold a nearby tree you'll like float off into the sky. And it 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 felt very familiar when I was reading this. For instance, yeah, like the first story, it's, which is also the titular story, it's about this guy who is in a relationship with a woman and she ends up leaving him. And there's this like peculiar trait that he has, that he's always cold. And so he always has a space heater around him in the house. And so this space heater got to observe this entire relationship, and then towards the end of the story the space heater starts talking, and there's this moment where the person's like, what, you can talk? And the space heater's like, oh yeah, I just tried it and now I can speak. And so yeah, I don't know, I haven't like, my mind hasn't really like settled all that much on like processed, my mind hasn't necessarily processed all the stories, but it's just such an interesting manga, and I'm so excited to really like dive deep into this and like think about it. But yeah, I'm so happy that such a good manga ended up like getting to the first position in this ranking list. It's so funny because usually when it comes to your literature, for at least for me, I don't know if it's for you as well, that there's such a stark like difference, or like a stark divide between manga and like fiction writing, like books basically. And so to see the same like to see a type of genre that usually, that is very popular within like the fiction book novel writing space, to see that like genre translates so well into manga is really, really interesting to me. So I hope that this also gets like an English translation and that more people can read about it. But yeah, I think that's everything for today. I'm so sorry that I was gone so long, and I hope that I can get back to making more podcast episodes, also in a more sustainable way. I'm gonna try and make it more casual. Usually I used to like make like a ton of like very detailed notes, and now I want to like try and make it like even more casual. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.